Thank you so much for tuning into the show, and welcome to Season 2 of the Audiobook Club with John York. The Audiobook Club, partnered with Pro Audio Voices, celebrates audiobooks, the amazing people and teams who make them happen, as well as the various talents behind storytelling. To learn more about Amplify and other opportunities to grow your sales, platform, and audience, head over to proaudiovoices.com and listen out for a short but informational advertisement within this episode. Let's start the show. Hello and welcome to the Audiobook Club. In this week's episode, we're so lucky to be joined by actor and audiobook narrator Mia Hutchinson-Shaw. Mia, it's such a joy to have you on the show. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing all right, yeah. So at the time of recording, we've had APAC and the Audies just this past week. People are still kind of getting over it, still taking it all in. How did you find those events? Like, I believe you mentioned it was your first APAC event. How did you find it all?
It was crazy. It was totally crazy. I mean, I totally loved it, but my body was totally overwhelmed by it. It was so incredible to meet folks like you in person again, give people hugs, like meet folks that I've worked with but never met in person because I came to this during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it was totally like my body was filled with so much love and excitement to be a part of this community. And I was talking to my family about it, about what it was like. And I was like, I felt so proud to belong to this excellent community. And it was so overwhelmingly joyful to feel that feeling of belonging. But then the physical part of like, I've interacted with so many people. I've been at a 10 on my excitement level for 3-4 days. And it was fantastic. But I learned so much about myself in those situations, which was really interesting. I really took a lot of takeaways, and I feel like I have like a little list of like things I can work on, things I'm good at.
Yeah.
And those big networking moments.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because that is a follow-up question that I was going to ask. But firstly, I just wondered, because I know everyone kind of had a different idea around it, and I just was interested to know yours. So folks, and I suppose maybe everyone comes under this, but we kind of like had not necessarily like a game plan, but an idea of how we would sort of approach these events. And I just kind of wondered if you sort of fell into that, and then also like how did you find it? Because I kind of went in with a little bit of okay, well I want to speak to this person, I want to sort of say this, and then as soon as the event came, it just sort of all fell away, and I just found myself just chatting, which was amazing. Don't get me wrong.
I was the opposite. I went in and I said, I want to just be as open as I can. I want to learn as much about this community as I can, from the people who built this industry. I feel that I want to learn so much more about the values of the community, how people deal with celebration, deal with conflict. There's so much to learn from the people who built this community, who are running these rooms of opportunity, who are in these rooms of opportunity. So I went in and my game plan was I want to be as open as possible. I want to listen as much as I can. And I want to try and put myself in the ways of conversations that maybe I haven't been having with my peer groups and my coaches for the last 2 years. So for me, that was like, I want to go to a lot of the more business track panels. And it was funny, so once I got there, I kind of felt like, oh my gosh, there is so much packed into these couple of days. And I felt a little bit of like, oh my gosh, maybe I should have made a list. And I really had to negotiate with myself. I was like, okay, am I going to stick to my plan of just being open, see what's happening, going to these panels, or am I gonna halfway through the day kind of throw out my plan? And I really tried to stick to my plan, but it was interesting. I definitely came home and I said to myself, I totally had that scarcity mindset conversation with myself. Did I miss an opportunity because I don't have a little list? And I don't know, I'm still having that conversation with myself. But it was interesting because I feel that APAC, I had a plan to be open. And then when I went to the Audies, I was like, well, if I see these 3 people, I want to make sure that they know a project that came my way because of them, how appreciative I was of that project because it was so personal or artistically fulfilling. And I think going into the Audies, I think I had found the balance, right? I had the 3 people that if I saw them, I wanted them to know how much that opportunity meant to me. But I was so open because I feel like once I hit the Audies, I was like, oh, the pressure's off. Like, this is fun, you know?
Yeah.
So I really learned a lot about myself. And my partner had to remind me, he was like, you've never done anything like this before. Be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got their own way of organizing themselves in these situations, right? And it's easy to look over and go, oh my gosh, they seem like they're talking to everybody. Or, oh, they have a plan and they've talked to everybody on their list. And I think for me, it was just really exciting to feel a part of the community. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I needed to walk away from was saying, okay, I've done this work. You know, and almost a little bit of like having a conversation with my imposter syndrome and saying, okay, I've done this work. I'm really proud of this work. I know I'm still growing. I still have goals. But for me, I needed to take a moment to celebrate that I was here and that like I belonged, you know?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It was fun. I think so. For me, it was a very emotional experience. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It was like a real milestone, I think, for me.
Yeah, I couldn't resonate with that more. That's exactly how I felt. I felt myself very sort of high strung at APAC and the social before on the Sunday, and it was we went out for drinks, just a few of narrators on the after APAC, you know, on the Monday, and then I found myself a lot more looser and able to, you know, have conversations that sort of felt natural and such, with people like yourself excluded from that because I felt very natural and very at home with that. And then I found like even the Audies, maybe because it was such like a big event and I'd never done anything, like I've never been to that before, but then I found myself at the Nordies afterwards, and that was where I did most of my networking because I felt just sort of chill, I felt open.
Yeah,
you know,
I love that. I think it's so funny because what we do as actors, we're so vulnerable, and we strengthen that muscle, right? We try and like feed that part of ourselves, but then we forget almost to let ourselves be open and vulnerable in the moments that like we can make connection. I always am like, dude, what's going on in my brain? Like, brain, work with me here.
Absolutely. Having been and done these events, are there any kind of thoughts or maybe some advice that you would share to those looking to go in the future who perhaps missed out on this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about this because I was reflecting about the networking panel that I caught at APAC, and Ruthie said something that I thought was so smart, and it was, get to know your strengths and weaknesses as, I kind of hate using this word, but like get to know your strengths and weaknesses as a networker. So we could translate that into like get to know your strengths and weaknesses as a human in relationship with other humans. And I think that was so smart because I feel that I walked away from that. I went, okay, I really know my strengths are just connecting in a natural way and chatting. And my weaknesses are maybe being a little bit brave and watching for an opportunity out of the corner of my eye to say hi to that one person. Not be weird about it, but, you know, if the moment arises and it's appropriate, be brave. And so I think getting to know the things that you need to work on, and maybe it's I'm just making up an example. You know, maybe you talk a lot and you're not always good at asking the other person questions. And so you realize you walk away from an interaction and you don't know anything about them because you just talked the whole time. So like learning about yourself, where you take up a lot of space, where you don't take up a lot of space, where it's really easy for you to be brave, where you could be brave more. And then the other thing that I was really thinking about is how much of an asset my peers and colleagues were. It was so generous to be chatting with someone and all of a sudden to be pulled on your sleeve and go, hey, I really want you to meet so-and-so from da-da-da. And it's a buddy of yours introducing you to someone you really respect who works at da-da-da, or introducing you to another narrator you really respect. And also being able to be brave and give that right back. Someone grabs you and you start chatting and then you see your friend out of the corner of your eye and you're like, oh man, they've got to meet this person. Just grabbing them by their shirt and saying, hey, come here, I want you to meet. And so for me, those were the moments that were so amazing because it wasn't icky, right?
Yeah.
Nobody was elbowing into a conversation. It was, oh, I really want you to meet this person. Or have you met this person? They're just over there. They're wearing that shirt. You've got to meet them. Like, I think for me, those were the takeaways of like, so whether it's, game plan with a buddy, like my friend Alex Raby and I were like, okay, we're going to game plan. How do you want me to introduce you to someone? And we would practice the 3 things that we would say, like, oh, have you met Alex Raby? She's such a badass. Like, she's working on this and this and this.
Yeah.
Or these are her, working with a friend, or it doesn't even have to be a close friend. It can just be, your buddy, your wing person.
Yeah.
So I think for me, those were the things of like going in, know your goals, right? And even if I don't have goals, that's still a goal, right? Like be honest with yourself about what you want. I think for me, that was the biggest thing was like, I don't know if I was honest with myself about what I wanted. And so like really being honest with yourself, being in community, be a good wing person and like get to know your strengths and weaknesses. I feel like those are my big takeaways.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. And I think just speaking of, I think if for those who are listening, if you are putting us in a situation where you can introduce someone to another person, I think that's perfect because I think it makes both people, it's a good thing to do for both people, especially because I had interactions where I just finished a very nice conversation and I was kind of mulling around for a few minutes, sort of with the drink, just sort of seeing who's about. And then I had a tap on my shoulder and I was brought into another conversation and it made me feel so much better about, the whole event. And I really, really appreciated being brought in when I was a little lost for a little moment, which was nice.
I think I think you said it so perfectly. It's like, it's such a gift to make other people feel good.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to feel good. You're going to be of service. You're going to make your buddies and your colleagues feel good.
Yeah.
And I think that's, one of the secrets to life is like how you feel and how you make other people feel.
Yeah.
That's where the change happens.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's just the things that come from that. Like I was introduced through Kira Fix, who I knew, and we'd done a book together. So we were chatting and then she introduced me to, a person that she was talking to. And then we ended up getting along really well. We ended up sort of developing a friendship over the few days that we were there. And like, I went out with their group for drinks and stuff. And that would have never happened if it wasn't if you met John and like, that kind of thing. So it was wonderful. I just wondered, like, I know a bit of a strange thing to ask considering that we've met at 2 networking events. Technically, I know the first one was a little bit more social with Andre Santana and, that thing. But I just kind of wondered, is networking, like specific events, socials, meetups, something as an actor that you strive to go to many, or is it just the odd few? Like, what is your sort of view on those events?
It's interesting. I'm still making my peace with it, right? We're still like, networking and I are still dating. We're still figuring it out. I think, look, it's funny because it's like the 2 opportunities we've met. When we met with Andre, it was like, of course I'm going to go join Andre for dinner with some other wonderful narrators. What an amazing way to spend the evening, right? Yeah. And I think for me, it was very similar of like the choice to go to the Audis, right? To like make that commitment to go. I was like, of course I'm going to go and celebrate this industry and get dressed up, you know.
Yeah.
Good luck keeping me away from an opportunity to get dressed up. So, you know, for me, those are like the hell yeses. Like if something's a hell yes and it's a networking opportunity, then like, great, it's a networking opportunity, but it's like a chance to go and be among friends and colleagues, and especially coming out of these years of the pandemic, and obviously we're still very much negotiating what happens when we get together, while we still have the threat of COVID. But for me, it's like I'm an introvert, but I'm also like dying to be around people. You know, and people are the inspiration for what we do, right? We study people and we learn what makes people tick, and so to like go and be around people, good people, kind people, right? It's like a no-brainer. But then kind of maybe those more like cut and dry, you know, APAC, you gotta go. It's like, you know, you have to, so much of what we were just talking about, like you have to figure out what's gonna make you tick in those situations. You know, why are you gonna go? Okay, why am I going? I'm going to learn about this community. I'm going to learn about things, ideas that I don't know about. I'm going to speak to this one person I really respect, these 3 people I really respect. I mean, I'm still learning. I'm a very insecure person. I don't want to say shy. I used to say that I was shy. I don't think I'm shy. I think I'm insecure. I get very nervous around people I don't know. I have social anxiety, right? I'm worried I'm going to put my foot in it, or, you know, say something silly or be too goofy. You know, it's like I'm still learning about that part of myself and trying to befriend it and let it know that it doesn't need to be so insecure in these moments. And so I don't know, it's like, it's for me, it's like very much like dating. It's like I'm still figuring out what it's like to be in this situation. What are my boundaries? What feels good, right? I think that's what I'm trying to talk around, is like I'm always trying to find the thing that feels good and kind and being of service, but also not selling myself short, right? I want to get to know people so that I can do meaningful work and have meaningful relationships. So sometimes it's like, again, going back to dating, it's like, it's horrible to be on the dating apps, right? Like it's not a great experience for a lot of people. But if you want to get to the kind of relationship that you want to be in, you got to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I'm laughing about my own analogy, but
I think it's a perfect analogy. And I think what you were saying before about how you have to have a conversation with yourself and get, you know, and also the first thing is it's okay to not feel comfortable about going to these events. And like, I know there's that kind of rhetoric of, oh, you must go to APAC, it's so important and things. But I think you can have a customized experience. You can totally talk to yourself, okay, that section of it, that's not for me. That's a little bit overwhelming right now. So I'm just going to go and do my thing, and I'm going to be fine with that. I think that's really important.
I could not agree more. I think you summarized it perfectly.
I'd love to know more about your background, how you came into the world of acting and then, of course, audiobook narration. Could you give us a little bit of a rundown on your background and how you got started in this mad world?
Yeah, I can. So I laugh, but I too was one of those kids who was like, I want to be an actor. I got to be about 16, 17, and I was like, I just want to be an actor. This this world makes sense to me. I love words, literature, people, collaboration. I want to be an actor. So I expressed that and to my family, and I have an extremely supportive family. And I eventually found my way to Interlochen Arts Academy, which is a boarding school in northern Michigan. And I went there for my last 2 years of high school. And I had the opportunity and great privilege to have an academic high school schedule in the morning and an artistic academic schedule from 3 p.m. on. So you would do like math in the morning, science, much to my chagrin, history, English, like all the normal high school stuff until 3 p.m. And then at 3 p.m. the schedule would switch over and you would do your artistic learning. So voice and speech, singing, rehearsal for the production. And it was an absolutely life-changing experience for me. I was a kid who really struggled to fit in and struggled to, I had friends in all the different groups, but I never really quite fit into any of the groups. So it was like, you always had somewhere to sit at the lunch table, but maybe when it was time to make plans for the weekend, you didn't have anywhere to go, you know?
Yeah.
So for me at Interlochen, belonging, learning that I really belonged in this community gave me so much confidence, which was, I think, something really hard for me to find as like a 17, 18-year-old. And it was a really wonderful experience. And also for me, being in collaboration with all of the other artistic like disciplines at Interlochen. My best friend to this day was my roommate at Interlochen. She was a classical harpist. She's still a classical harpist.
Nice.
To learn about all these different artistic disciplines really lit me on fire. And I came from a very artistic household. My parents are both artists and professors. And so to be even more immersed in the arts, it just like felt so good and felt so right. And so I then found my way to the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland in Glasgow, Scotland, where I did a BA, or for the Americans, the BFA in acting. And again, that was a really transformative experience to be 18 years old, living on my own in Glasgow, which is such a fantastic city to live in. And you know, being on the younger side of my classmates at drama school was really amazing as well, because I had incredible tutors there. But my classmates were also my tutors in that way, because I was learning from them about craft and art, but also like how to be a grown up. And I have immense respect for every one of my classmates that I went through that drama school experience with, and they're all my heroes, and they know that. And so I lived in Glasgow for 3 years and just fell in love with classical acting and had my first experience with a microphone, you know, voice acting, which was, at the time, I thought nothing of it, which is really wild to think back to it now and go, oh my God, I had no idea. And then I found myself back in New York after my graduation, and I really thought that my experience was I was going to be a jobbing theater actor in New York. And I did that, and I have done gigs all over the US in theater and worked on a lot of theater development. And then I really started to feel a disconnect between the kind of roles I was getting, the kind of roles I was auditioning for. And I just felt like a huge dissonance. And I was like, okay, I feel my experience in life differently than the roles that are coming my way. And I think a lot of that had to do with, at the time, I look very young. I sound very young. And it was hard for me to find the congruency between going and auditioning for these ingenues who were pretty and cute and docile and finding that part within myself over and over and over again. It's like, you know, it's like if you use the same muscle over and over and over again, the other muscles atrophy. And I couldn't, I couldn't make peace with that being the only thing in my future. So I was really deeply questioning what my relationship to making art was and how could I expand it. And I flirted with so many ideas, leaving acting altogether, you know, going back to school, you know, becoming a psychologist. Also,
cool.
you know, all of the things. I was asking all the big questions. I was getting no answers, but just kept trying to ask the questions. And then 2020 happened and the world shut down and the industry of theater and, well, New York shut down. And I didn't miss it at all. And I felt really guilty. I felt really guilty. But I think for me, I'm so grateful for that time because it finally gave me the opportunity to get off the horse. Because while I was asking all these questions, I didn't stop auditioning. I was too scared to say, I think I just need a month. I just need 2 months. And so finally to have that opportunity to just like get off the horse and go walk around the block, take some deep breaths. And I'm so grateful for that time. And I know that that time for so many people was extremely painful. And I don't take that lightly. But for me, I just needed that time to like get quiet and let everything else melt away. And during that time, it's so funny because people ask me like, how did you start narration? And it was like, for me, it really was just like this tiny voice in the back of my head. Like, you know, you like audiobooks? That's acting. And I didn't really listen to it for a year. And I have wonderful friendships with people who are prolific narrators. Jess Nahikian, who you interviewed so beautifully, was my first, you know, seed planted. In early 2020, before the world shut down, I had gone to their studio and seen their new studio and was in total awe, but didn't think it had anything to do with me. I was just like, this is so amazing. Like, Jess is prolific and so impressive. But I wasn't thinking about like, oh, I want to do this until like really like early 2021. And then I was like, I've got time. I'm gonna flirt with this. And so I just got as scrappy as I could, and I just, you know, deep dived the internet. Like scary deep dives where like, you know, it probably looks like the detectives like in like the room with like the string from one place to another. That was like what my brain looked like. How do I become a narrator? You know, talking to this person, and then they say, go talk to this person, then I talk to this person. And so that led me to the amazing coaches that I still work with now. Has, you know, I had incredible generosity from other individuals in the industry and my friends. Massive shout out to Jess. You're my hero. And that's how I ended up here. And slowly, since those first quiet moments of, hey, I think you should try this. I've been building this career, and it's been really fun because it's totally brought me back to my joy for capital A acting and any form. So now I have a completely different relationship with auditioning for film, a completely different relationship for auditioning for theater. Like, I was really able to find my joy in those spaces again and be able to stand in my artistry in a completely different way. And I'm super grateful for that healing, because I really was really scared I was going to lose that part of myself, because I just couldn't, the disconnect between where I knew my art was in myself and how the industry was seeing me. And now I feel that I can stand in my artistry and let go of how people see me and just offer what I have to offer. And so it's, you know, it's like a little bit of like a coming of age. Like, I came into myself as an artist through this journey. It's been amazing. I'm really thrilled that I didn't quit.
Yeah, that's so magnificently inspiring, to be fair, if I could use that word. I think just that idea of things coming together, you know, in the back of your head, you know, you weren't necessarily or always aware of it leading you to try this avenue, and then that for pursuing this, reigniting your passion for the whole of performance. I was going to ask, so you mentioned, you know, in theatre and film, perhaps only being offered like a certain type of role, and as fun as that is, after a while you kind of want to do something a little bit different. And you know, so like with audiobooks, of course, you know, you can be anything. You can perform as you can be a wizard, you can be whatever, you know, the list goes on. Is that freeing for you then as a performer?
It is. It's been totally life-changing for me, to be able to feel into all of those parts of myself and to use all of those muscles, right? After only using a couple of muscles for so many years and trying to really make those muscles like so good and so shiny and so perfect, right? Like, give me the job because I'm the best at these two muscles. And so for me to like really feel into all of those muscles, it feels so good. And like as a, you know, I'm gonna laugh at myself, but like as a person who has like a voracious appetite for storytelling, like I do, it's so exciting because you're like, this is what you live for, right? You want to be able to play Hamlet, and you also want to be able to play Ophelia, and to have those two things in conversation with each other is so exciting. And you know, it's such a specific thing as well, but it's forced me to be so much more playful, which is, I think, a thing that I had such a hard time connecting to in my early and mid-20s in my work.
Yeah, that's incredible. So when in the early days of narrating audiobooks, on those first few projects, was there an aspect that you found more challenging than, you know, so maybe something that you didn't necessarily kind of, you know, reckon it would be challenging? Is there anything that sort of springs to mind when I asked that?
Absolutely. I thought for me, like, oh, I'm an actor. I'm a theater actor. Like, creating character is going to be no problem. And it was actually, that has been the thing that is the most challenging for me, because I'm such a stickler for character that I want to make sure that these people are characters, people, not voices.
Yeah.
So for me, that has been really challenging, because sometimes there are a lot of people in these books. Like, sometimes you're like, that is a lot of people. Where will they come from? And you know, sometimes they're just there for a couple of lines and they can be fun and fresh and a little bit bawdy. But you know, your leading man, your main character, deserves as much dignity and gravitas and groundedness as they would get from an individual person on stage. So that for me has actually been really hard. And I thought that finding, you know, the narrative voice would be way harder, trying to find those levels of presence, omnipresence. But for me, that's been so fun, because it's almost just like, okay, who am I in this story? Who is this character? What is the version of me, of this character in this story? So it's been funny. It's been really swapped for me. And building character is something I think about all the time. And it's something I really want to work on with my coaches at the moment. It's like the top of my list is like, how can I, you know, and specifically men, because there's the, there's the challenge of creating an authentic experience for the listener, but also creating a safe working environment for my voice and my body.
Absolutely,
yeah. Those are it's been really surprising, but really fun, right? Because you think, oh, I'm so good at this, and then you get your ass handed to you a little bit. But that's like the cool thing, right? Like, for me, my experience of being an artist is like, I'm not that interested in doing the thing that I'm good at over and over and over again. Like, obviously, I want to be skilled. I want to offer authentic and thoughtful character creation, performance, narration, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, it's like, I'm here for a long time. I'm here for a good time and a long time. So how do you create an arc of growth for yourself? And for me, that's the fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do I love this thing today? And how do I love the version of this thing in 10 years?
Yeah. I think you have to. I think that's such an interesting point, and something that we haven't actually spoken about on the show before, because I think you're absolutely right, because the actual practicality of narrating audiobooks, if you were reading the same manuscript every single week, every single day, that'd get old super quick. So it's the content, it's the characters that changes the whole environment and makes it so interesting. Just to, if I could probe a little bit further on what you were saying about creating characters, so what in that process of, so the main character, the main few characters that you really want to dig deep, I'd love to know your kind of process of like, is there research involved? Do could you just chat a little bit about getting inside that character's head before narrating?
Totally. And I think for me, it's, disclaimer, it's different for every book, depending on what the challenges of the book are. And right, sometimes there's the logistics of like, there are a lot of accents in this book. Those have to sometimes come first a little bit. You can't, you don't counting in the reviews that they're terrible. So, right. So it's like the logistics of like, okay, what are like the facts of the things? Like, okay, sometimes it's as simple as like, okay, we know the voice is described as a certain way. We know the body is described as a certain way. And I will say that like the way I create characters, or the way they come to me, like for theater, film, and narration, I don't think is that different, right? You're mining the text for the same clues, the same facts. How they're described to be in their body, how their voice is described. What are the facts of their life? Did they have a specific accent? Are they from a specific place, like culturally? And that's a thing that I think is really interesting too, is like how our cultures define us. And that was something I learned so much about living in the UK, was really seeing for the first time how culture affects who we are.
Yeah.
Our ideas of success, ambition, relationships. So for me, that's something I'm always trying to look for, is like you look for the micro, and then you look for the macro, and you hope that they meet in the middle in a thoughtful place. And I'm also very visual, so I'll pull like images of things. Sometimes even if it's just like a middle grade set in the Pacific Northwest, 3 sisters, they're on a treasure hunt, and you're like, okay, I feel like I know this world, right? But even still, like pulling those images of like, what do the trees look like? What do the beaches look like? So for me, when I'm narrating, I'm seeing the movie in my head. And it's for me, it's like no different than being on stage, because I would be doing the same thing. Because if my character is looking out the window during the scene, what is my character seeing out that window? I don't know. Like for me, there's no difference.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do at the moment is there's tons of YouTube tours of cities. Like just a random dude, right? Just a random person with their camera on, like cruising through downtown Manchester, right? And it's, for me, those are gold, because I'm like, okay, there's this chase scene through downtown Manchester. What does that look like? Pulling that up, getting that image, like, okay, I'm imagining what that's like. And for me, my imagination is just like a huge tool in my toolbox.
Yeah.
And I have a teacher who I absolutely adore, a clown and acting teacher, and one of his things that we always work on in his class is like strengthening our imagination. How do we strengthen and care for our imagination? By caring more for my imagination, the work gets more exciting.
Yeah.
Because it's more fun. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're hit again. And, it's still work, right? We get tired, we work long days. There are challenges, but like when the work inside the booth can be more fun, it's so much easier to take care of the logistics outside of the booth.
I mean, this was something that I've been sort of working on myself for the past sort of few years, because I think I needed to give myself permission to explore kind of my Jess Nahikian said something that's really stuck with me, and I've got actually a few messages from listeners about it, and it was about they were told that, now forgive me, off the top of my head I can't remember who told them, but it was about how like a part of this life is that you're given permission to cultivate your taste as an artist. That's like a big part of it, and it kind of that rung bells for me when they said that on the show, because it was like you mentioned at the start of the show that you had lots of friends, but you never felt part of like a group until you started acting and performing and such. But I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but all those different groups that you would have mingled with at that time, they will come out in characters, if not so, if they haven't done so far, they will in the future. Like there'll be certain nuggets of people that you've met who aren't in this world that will benefit your craft. Does that ring truth? Any truth to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially curiosity is like a really big part of my personal values. And it's something that I struggle with, right? I'm American. We were like in the midst of a culture war, I have members of my family who have vastly different ideological views that I find absolutely horrifying and upsetting. And it's easier to have curiosity about people who maybe aren't so close to you. I will say that, right? But having curiosity about all kinds of people is good for the world. It's good for your spirit, and it's good for your artistry, right? It's like, and I think it's so funny. I think we can see this like so clearly in so many of like the romance tropes. Is like we love a bad boy, we love a bad girl, right? Because there's maybe something in the real world we wouldn't maybe want to have to deal with them. But in our fictional world, we can engage with them with curiosity and, be drawn to them and let ourselves be curious, and it's exciting, right? And that's and that's what I think is powerful about story, right? Is like we can get beyond the boxes that we build for ourselves in the real world.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just, I want to escape and go into this other box, which is really cool. And sometimes it's this, I want to really be curious about what it's like to live in this other box. And then maybe like our box gets a little bigger. Maybe our box breaks wide open if it's really a powerful experience, which is like,
I think that's why it's so important. As just stories like in general, when you take like Romeo and Juliet, right? Two people who should have never even mingled, never mind fall in love or whatever. Two people who could have never gotten on because of who they are as, of a name. But then they find the truth in that. Of course, that's nonsense, and you can do it. And I think that's sort of, I think a lot of us need, reminding at times that that's what story's there for. It's for broadening that horizon. It's for teaching us the truths that we, breaking down those barriers that we place there ourselves for whatever reason,
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Now, I just wondered, how much are you recording at home in like, a home studio versus, out in a studio, in New York?
Yeah. It's changed a lot for me in the last couple of months. I was doing most of my recording at home, probably like up until February. And then starting in February, gosh, I mean, it's really only the end of, first couple of days of April. But February and March, I really started going into studio more in New York. And so I'm thinking about what I've got coming up. I've got a week in studio in April, and I've got a week and a half in studio in May. So it's like, like 3 of the 4 weeks of the month.
Yeah.
And that's been so cool because I'm learning so much about just the difference, right? Like when you're in, I got so excited. The difference. When you're in studio, you've got so much more support because you've got an engineer, you've potentially got an engineer and a director, depending on the setup. And that's been so exciting for me because I get to learn more about what those individuals do and specialize in and learn so much from them. I've had some incredible directors in the last couple of months who have taught me so much. And that's really exciting for me because, you know, I'm a theater kid. That's where like for me, that's where like it gets really exciting, is like being in collaboration with people. And also like the pressure of not having to listen so hard to yourself. When I'm in studio, I turn the monitor way down. I'm like, you listen. If my feet go bump, you'll catch it. If there's something weird going on, you'll catch it. And then it just allows me to find that extra level of freedom.
Yeah.
Because when I'm working at home, I'm really listening. And that's hard for me. It's hard to pat my head, rub my tummy at the same time.
Yeah.
Stay in those two different lanes at the same time, like artist and technical.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really fun. I feel like my process at home is getting better from what I'm learning in studio, and I feel really, really spoiled to have those opportunities.
I wondered if I could ask, and again, this may be a really brief or obvious question, so do feel free to ignore it completely. But I was wondering about studio etiquette. Now, there's many, especially here in the UK, because there's less studios, and especially if you're not, local to London and stuff, the majority of the time you're going to be working in your home booth, should it be, up to standard, of course. So we're finding a lot of new narrators and voice actors working in their home booths and such, but then through that work, getting invited down to work more in studios. So for those people who are looking for that journey, I just kind of wondered, again, vague question, as a performer, as an actor, how should one behave? What sort of things should we prepare for, just to make sure that we're making the best impression once we get into that studio for the first couple of times,
I think it's such a thoughtful question, right? Because we are working in collaboration with each other, and like as much as we feel like we're the star of the show, like we know that we're not just the star,
Yeah.
But also at the same time, like you are there to work and it's okay to ask for certain things. So I think it's a really thoughtful question. And I have a lot of back channel conversations with other narrators about like, hey, this thing happened. I'm not sure how to handle it. Can I send an email past your eyes? Can I get a second thought? Or hey, I'm dealing with this thing. Like, can I get an opinion? So first, I would say, when in doubt, talk to those who have more experience than you do and who are trusted, right? And I think for etiquette, remembering that you're there to work, so it's okay to ask for the things that you need to work. If it's simple things like, hey, I'd really like to listen to the end of that chapter again since we took a break.
Yeah.
That's totally an okay thing to ask for. And or if you're feeling like really zonked and you're like, I know we just took another break, but I need another break. That's okay to ask for too. But also, I think it's always it's like a balance of being a good human, right? So like if the engineer or the director is saying, hey, are you ready for a break? And you're maybe not ready for a break, you can be like, I'm not quite ready, but how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Like it's a fine balance. I'm a very deferential person. I'm a recovering people pleaser. So I struggle with this too, like being respectful of those around you, but also saying like, hey, I don't need a break right now. I'm actually like really in the pocket and I know what's coming in these next 3 chapters and I don't want to break right now, or asking for me, it's like asking for a longer lunch break. Sometimes some people are like half hour and I'm like, I need a little bit longer. I have to run out and get that salad still,
Yeah.
I think, but also being open and not being afraid to just go, okay. Like for my first experience in studio, I didn't really know what was going on. I was just feeling it out. And I'm not sure that was like a bad thing. I was just like, I had a couple of things that I wanted to run by the director. That was fine. All good. They had no problem with that, And then just being like, okay, what happens? There are other people there who know, and hopefully they can guide you just by them doing their normal routine, and you can learn from that. And then also as you grow in confidence, you can ask, hey, is this something that is okay to ask for. And hopefully, and if you're asking a trusted person, that's the thing too. It's like, know your audience, know who you're talking to, and say, is this a normal thing, Pat, or is this cool that I ask for this?
It's especially one that you mentioned that it made me smile, the recovering people pleaser, just because I feel, I mean, I feel like I'm very much relating to that.
Right? It's like, we could go on and on about it, right? It's, yeah, and I think that goes back to like know yourself. Like what we were talking about networking. It's like get to know yourself. Like for me, I know that I'm usually like a little too deferential. So like sometimes I have to challenge myself to be brave and say, I would like 15 extra minutes for lunch, please. Or hey, I really can't work. If someone's like, oh, can you schedule these days? And you're like, no, you don't have to give a reason. You're like, no, these days are the days that I'm available.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a work in progress for many of us. Like for myself, just with APAC just going, I had to keep reminding myself, because number one, no one wants to come across as a dick and be overconfident. Of course not. But then there was also that part where it's like, you do, like, because I was nervous about meeting so many amazing people and so many people who are doing amazing things that I admire so much, and I wish to be, at one point doing those projects as well, those type of projects. But you kind of have to sort of say to yourself also that, okay, I may not be at that level just yet, but I still deserve to be in the room. Like I'm still, which I think it can take a little bit of work sometimes, just sort of reminding yourself that you're a human being in this industry too. You're allowed to be there just as well as everybody else.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I feel that. That resonates so much with me.
Yeah, I think but we're all a work in progress, and I think that's what keeps life interesting.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I think that's like the joy of life, right?
Yeah.
It's like finding the joy of being a work in progress, and like obviously it's it's challenging. I have a coach that I say to, but I want to be healed by Friday. I have fun plans. I want to be perfect by Friday. I have things I need to do this weekend. But like for me, my journey as a human, as an artist, like trying to find the joy in the process. Yeah. Which, that's on all the levels. The joy in the truth, the day-to-day, the joy in the admin, the joy in the I'm doing this kind of work, but my dream is to do this kind of work,
Yeah. I think that's funny when I talk a lot about being anxious to my trusted friends and colleagues and occasionally professionals, and talk about being anxious and stuff, and they say, well, it's something that you're gonna be challenged with, like, forever. It probably never go away completely, and you're like, oh, that doesn't really work for me. I need this done. Like,
this up. We gotta speed this up. Anxiety. We're on a timeline here. we have to keep union hours. Come along. I feel that so deeply. But then, at the same time, in a funny way, do you feel like the things that challenge you the most also give you like a little bit of a superpower sometimes? Sometimes,
yeah. I think it's because part of my sort of coping strategy is it doesn't matter, because I always worry, what if I say this and it goes really wrong, or what if this happens, this happens, and then I have to sort of get myself in a mindset of just F it. It doesn't matter. You're just going to do it, and it doesn't matter. And then I can kind of go a little bit numb sometimes and just force through it. And I think then that sort of makes me a little braver for things that I may not have done if I, it's kind of...
Totally. Yeah, that resonates. That resonates. Yeah, it's funny. It's like, I feel like the things I struggle with sometimes also give me like these little Easter eggs of like, hey, you learned something really cool, or you got a cool opportunity from... talking way too much. Like, oh, I totally got that book from that producer because I absolutely talked their ear off that one time.
Yeah. I went to like a confidence course like many years ago with the School of Life, which is like a YouTube thing, and they were a proper organization who did YouTube videos. And I went to one of those, and they gave me this advice at the start, and they said, like, you're probably all really nervous about being here. Go figure, it's a confidence course, right? You're probably all really nervous. And so what you should do next time, like you go... Like, next time you're in this situation, go to somebody and just be totally honest about how you're feeling. Like, don't try and act like you know what you're doing. Just go and tell them exactly all of your fears. And I went to another event and did that exact thing. Went up to somebody who was sort of doing that kind of awkward, hi, how are you? Kind of, you know, what's your name? What do you do? Kind of thing. And I just stopped myself and said, like, I'm so nervous to be here. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know where anything is. And that person turned around to me and was like, oh my God, me too. And then we ended up being mates for ages. And it just, you know, it was just...
Like, it's those magical things.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of those kind of life classes and life coaches. Like, I did an amazing program course called Stasia's Style School, which is all about finding your inside out congruency. So dressing and using style as a tool to connect to who you are on the inside. Yeah. And I'm such a fan of those magical teachers who help us translate the experience we have inside our bodies towards like living living a more wholehearted, like congruent life. Yeah. And it's so magical. It's so magical. That's such a cool experience you had. And it gave you a superpower.
I think so. I think, it was really, it's sort of, I don't want to sound over dramatic and stuff, but it generally did change a lot of how I look at the world, you know.
That doesn't sound dramatic at all to me. Like, Stasia's Style School absolutely changed my life.
Yeah, it's there you go. What's when not acting on screen, on stage, or in the booth, of course, what can we often find you up to? Oh
my gosh. I mean, my cat is my best friend. We were just snuggling earlier. I mean, for me, I love like the simple, mundane things. Like, I love hanging out at home with my partner and my cat, and just like creating my own home as an adult has been really joyful for me. And, you know, slowly accumulating that cool chair from Craigslist, or that, you know, the couch from the family that I used to nanny for that they gave me. And so I love like creating little spaces and nooks in our house and being at home. I'm a huge TV nerd.
Nice.
I love the form of television. I love like long form storytelling, obviously. Hello, Audiobook Narrator. I love TV. And then, what else am I super into? I mean, style. I love to thrift.
Nice.
And I love clothes and expressing myself through clothes. And I really want to learn how to sew. Hopefully, by the next time I see you, I will learn to sew.
Yeah.
And I love to, you know, I'm really into like, I like to make my own earrings when I have time. And
nice.
You know, just like delightful, weird little crafty things.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is all very creative things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in a really creative house, and I didn't have a television, which is probably why I love television now. Yeah. We didn't have a television, and you know, growing up, my parents were always in their respective studios. Like, my mom is a large scale installation ceramic artist, and my dad is a woodworker. And so, you know, that was like everybody, that was what we would do when we had free time, was go in and be creative. And I'm super grateful for having that experience as a kid, because it's how I prefer to walk through the world, is like just getting into a little mischief and you know, learning new things even when you're maybe not good at them. That's a cool thing of like learning new hobbies, is like learning how to suck at things and be like, I suck. But I'm having fun.
Yeah. Learning, like teaching yourself that it's okay to not be good at anything, like good at something. It's not good at anything, I'm sure, but good at something, you know. That's
been a huge learning thing for me. Is not being good, learning how to take joy in that. And
yeah, I think it's easy as well to sort of, because you know, if you're trying to push for like a career and you're trying to forge that life for yourself, then you kind of can develop this mindset of like, I have to be amazing at everything. and then being able to say, well, I want nothing other than just joy from this one task. It doesn't matter if it's terrible. It doesn't matter if I'm the worst person at it who's ever existed. I'm going to just enjoy this for what it is. And I think you get a lot of...
And it totally goes back to that Ira Glass quote that Jess Nahikian shared in their episode, was that when you start making stuff, whether it's a hobby or a career, you suck. Yeah. You just do, right? You've never done it before. You don't have the muscles, like the muscle recall. And so you have to learn what you like, and you have to learn how to suck. And as like you learn to suck less and you learn what you like more, you meet in the middle, and you make a cool, happy place to hang out, hopefully.
Yeah, 100%. I've been asking this next question on the last 6 or 7 episodes, and to different kind of results. Some people that really don't like it, some people love it. So what's a question that you wished you were asked more?
I'm thinking about it through the lens of being younger, being a younger artist person, right? Where do you feel free? And I think I was asked, I want to give credit where credit is due. I've had some absolutely incredible mentors and teachers. And I think that they did ask me this in their own way.
Yeah.
I think you can't ask a young person this enough, right? Because that's like the compass, right? It's like we're all trying, and everybody has a different word for it, right? It's like we all feel the same things, but we all have different words.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I wish that someone had asked me more and more, where do you feel free? Because I think that would have just reminded me to keep going and try and find that true north.
Yeah.
And I hope that I keep asking myself that more now too.
That is such a good one. Do you mind if I steal that as my own answer for this?
Steal it? Oh my gosh. I mean, right? This is what I'm saying. We all feel the same thing, but we have different words for it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good answer. Yeah. I love that. I really do.
I'm a little bit like, wow, I really I think after this, I'm going to write it on a piece of paper. I'm going to write it in my booth. That is
a tattoo in the making, is that one?
Oh God, yeah.
Because as you're right, it keeps realigning it, and the answer can change over time. It's not
going to change, of course.
Yeah, it's just it just always sets you in the right. As you say, the compass, it just always keeps you north. Because it can change, and as you grow, it could be different things. But it's always like getting you back to that. What makes me? Where do I need to be in this world to make me feel, as you say, free?
Yeah, and it's such a privilege, right? It's such a privilege to feel free, but I do believe that if we do not cultivate within ourselves our own freedom, it's really, really, really hard to help other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Fight for freedom, equality, justice, congruency, whatever you want to call it. It's really hard to be a part of the collective healing if you're not in your own process of collective healing. That does not mean you have to be healed, right? We're laughing about let's be healed by Friday, but it's not gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
So we just have to be in our own process so we can engage with the collective, and it's really hard.
Yeah. But I think it opens up to asking yourself those questions, because I think once you've sort of asked yourself a question of, okay, is this a problem for me? Do I have to fix something? I think that's already such a huge step in the right direction. And I think that question of asking yourself that, or if you ask other people that same thing, it allows you to open up that narrative for yourself. And may bring your attention to things that you didn't realize were making you unhappy, didn't realize making you locked into somewhere. And as you say, if you're not at least heading towards a good space, you can't really create a good space for those around you, and that's what we're all trying to do in the long run, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I mean, it's like I feel like it's interesting, like as I get older, I feel like, as I get older, I'm still so young. But, like as I mature, it's interesting because I feel like my values as a human and my values as an artist become more and more intertwined. And that's really exciting because I'm like, it's easier to get oriented back to your North Star.
Yeah.
It's exciting, but it's daunting, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
feel like you're constantly at the bottom of your personal mountain. And even though you've climbed and you've climbed, you still feel like you're at the bottom of it.
I think that's one of the things that you often don't realize like how far you've come in your own journey. Because as you say, you still only feel like such at the beginning. And then something will come along, like, if a situation will arise and you may react in a better way. And then you think, oh, that would have destroyed me like 2 years ago.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So I would love to, I've just noticed how long we've been going. This has felt like 5 minutes for me. I've loved this conversation so much.
I know. I don't even know what time it is. I have nowhere to be, so don't.
I was just going to ask, like, where's the best place for people to keep up with you, keep up with your movements?
The best place to find me is on Instagram at Mia Hutchinson-Shaw. I'm not really on any other places consistently, and I think that's where I like to hang out. I sometimes hang out on TikTok, but I'm still figuring it out. So I love Instagram because I have so many different communities I'm a part of that meet there, and so it's kind of fun. It's like my water cooler, right? Especially since 2020. So much water coolering used to happen in the theater world, like in the audition hallways. And now that doesn't happen anymore, which is really bittersweet.
Yeah.
But now it's like all on Instagram. my DMs are a wild place. So please come join them. I can't wait to get to know you.
So I'd love to, as we come to an end of the show, I would just like to simply ask you if you have any upcoming projects, anything upcoming in the diary that you're excited about that we can look forward to and celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, I have an embarrassment of riches at the moment. I am the luckiest gal. I've got a YA title with Penguin coming up called Threads That Bind.
Nice.
A YA fantasy based in some Greek mythology, and I'm just getting started properly prepping on it this week. And oh my gosh, it's a really, really remarkable book.
Yeah.
And then I've got a really cool project with Blackstone coming up. I'm narrating a biography about Kate Bush, the singer.
Nice. Yeah.
And I'm really excited for that. It's going to be a marathon. It's going to be the longest studio session I've done. It's going to be 8 days in the studio.
Wow.
It's a really long book, but I'm so excited to I respect her so much, and I'm so excited to really get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And learn about her, right? It's so cool to learn about other people's artistic processes, especially who operate on such a huge global stage. So I've got and some really fun, spicy romance titles under my pseudonym. I've got an embarrassment of riches. It's going to be a really, really fun spring. I'm super excited, super grateful for the people who trust me with their stories.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So much fun to come. And I for one can't wait to listen when they come out. And best of 8 days. That's going to be such a good project.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. I feel like I have to start my cardio now.
Yeah.
All my cardio, all my meal planning, put my out of office on my email.
Yeah.
Good luck. You will not be able to reach me.
It's going to be so great, though. That sounds fantastic. Well, that just brings us to a close for this episode of the Audiobook Club. All links to Mia's social media and website will, of course, be linked in the show notes. Thank you very much for tuning in. And, of course, another huge thank you to you, Mia, for joining us. This has been so much fun.
So fun. Thank you so much for having me. Like I told you before we started rolling, I'm flattered and chuffed. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm so chuffed to have you. Thanks once again.
Thank you.
Frustrated by the royalty rates for your audiobook? Annoyed that when the digital distributors say 70% royalties, they actually mean 70% of 50% or 80% of 70%, neither of which is an actual 70%. Wishing there was a way to cut out the middleman? Yet, you want your audiobook listeners to have a smooth and positive experience, and a direct download sale from your website won't deliver that. We at Pro Audio Voices hear you. Out of our commitment to our author clients, we've created Amplify, a program that provides an actual 65% of the sales price that you set, that gives you access to your customers' names and emails so you can reconnect with them, and keeps you in the driver's seat. Check it out at proaudiovoices.com. You'll find Amplify in the marketing menu.